Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this Monday night slash morning, depending on where it is that you're joining us from. We are a bit late because I was attending an online meeting with some comrades of mine on a different forum. So that's why we are late. But nonetheless, like we often say, better late than never. So we are here to discuss the latest stuff from the world of football. We'll be looking forward to what's to come tomorrow. And as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, there's some really, really concerning news regarding the Arsenal camp, as well as there's some positive news from the Bayern Munich camp. So we'll be discussing that and more in tonight's broadcast for those of you that will be joining us. For those of you that were part of the morning engagement, I wish to say thank you so much for dedicating the time to be with us for that particular broadcast. For those of you that missed it, I hope you were able to go and catch the live after it did end. And on that very note, I wish to say thank you so much to all those that do join our live broadcast that watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended. So we do not take your love and support for granted. So it's always a pleasure to be with you in that regard. So, I mean, in as far as the day is being concerned, I think I was partly disappointed with Como's goalless draw against Udinese. Albeit I did not get the chance to watch the game. I was held up by some work. I think I was busy running some errands, and by the time I got back, it was a little too late for that game. So yeah, oh, come on, sorry. I'm just having our audios tested just to make sure everything does check out properly. But yeah, I think we are good to go for tonight's broadcast. Everything does check out. You know, I have to make sure our audios are pretty much spot on to make sure that nothing does slip through the cracks. As for those of you that are as old as this channel is, you know, we've burnt our fingers once or twice or on a couple of occasions here and there when it comes to having clean audio and things like that. So now, let's start with the news regarding Bukayo Saka, because that's the only place to start from. And the reason as why I start from there is because it's partly concerning. We did learn today from Mikel Arteta that he will be absent for their visit to Portugal against Sporting CP in the UEFA Champions League, a team that we know is quite stubborn against them. For those of you that are just joining us, it's 43 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. here in Kampala, Uganda, where I do come to you live from. My name is Robert Kesakos, and I beg to you to kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it is your first time here, so that you can help us continue to grow on that regard. Like I was talking or saying, Bukayo Saka, we're talking about a player who sort of has not had the best of seasons, but nonetheless, his absence remains remains a thorn in the foot, or becomes a point of worry or a source of worry for those Arsenal fans, wherever they could be, because he's he's such an important player. He's the kind of player that draws attention from opponents. If you're playing an Arsenal team and you know Bukayo Saka is not going to be in that game, regardless of what his form could be, you sort of have you will have those tensions eased down a little bit. Hello, how are you doing, my friend? Good to have you on the podcast. Your name is Rehan Sadiq. Rehan Sadiq. Hi, how are you doing? Why are you joining us from Rehan Sadiq? Like I was saying, if you're on an opponent, sorry about that, earthquake on the tripod. So, like I was saying, when you're playing against Arsenal and you know that they are going to be with, my name is Robert, thanks for asking. If you're going to play Arsenal and you know that they are without Bukayo Saka, trust me, you're going to be a little bit less worried, or maybe less concerned, and maybe even your sort of game setup could change. Age, not at liberty to say, but old enough to be on this channel. Thanks for asking. So, going into this game, given the sort of injury worries that Arsenal have had, and this was going back prior to the international break and in the aftermath of the international break, or even during the course of it, it does not alleviate any worries that Arsenal fans have held, you know, they've literally had to hold their breaths when it comes to some of those players. Gabriel Magalhaes, who requested to be taken off in that 2-1 loss against Southampton, happily for them, is back in training. And William Saliba, of course, is present. Christian Mosquera is available. Ricardo Carafiori, Leandro Trossard is available, although Mikel Arteta really had to think big on that one. And the reason as to why he had to really think big on it was because those questions about injuries were coming thick and fast. And the reason as to why they are coming thick and fast is because Arsenal have had so many injuries. They've really had so many injuries going into the weekend, or even during the course of the international break. We know that a total of 11 players had either pulled out directly of their national team squads or been sent back home early due to injury concerns and worries. And Bukayo Saka was among those, alongside Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is back into training. That's very good news for the Gunners. We saw Martin Zubimendi being sent home back early on because he had, pain in his knee. Gabriel Magalhaes missed the international break. Same applies to William Saliba. Now, I want to say this because a lot of people, and I've already explained this on the channel for those of you that are regulars, but I'll repeat it for the benefit of our newcomers. Hi, Big Boss. Good to have you back on the channel, although you call me Big Boss Mafia. Not a mafia, but thanks for your kind comments. So, like I was saying, I already explained this in the sense that a lot of people came out to criticize Arsenal. Unfortunately, Gabriel Agbonoha is one of those. And sometimes when some of these complaints are coming from people or that have played the game before, I feel disappointed. Why? Because I know they ought to know better, or they should at least know better. But maybe we over-exaggerate the importance or the given that these people should indeed know better. Why? First of all, if you've ever played football before or any sport, you'll know that you can't play really you're carrying an injury. Now, if there's a window of an opportunity for you to take a break from that injury, you will take it. And allow me to use this analogy. So let's say you're a student in school and you fall ill, but you still soldier on and go to class. And then it comes to a point where you've written your exams and you're waiting for results to come back for the semester or term to close. Now, for some, depending on what school you attend, exams could end and then you maybe have what would qualify for remedial classes. Now, after doing your exams, you could choose to say, look here, I'm not attending any classes until I'm fully healed. Why? Because those remedial classes, I can play catch up maybe during the holidays or during the summer, or during the term break or whatever. That's how you could interpret it. So for me, when I saw many players pulling out of injury, I do not disqualify for those that have the school of thought that some of them pulled out without any injuries whatsoever. Like some people tend to use it, that they effect injuries to stay behind. I want to give them a benefit of doubt. Having seen players, unknown players, to have played through injuries until a point when they can no longer do it anymore. I'll give you an example, and because this is very vivid. Last season, Arsenal's Urian Timber had to play through injury, and he did not train prior to the return leg against PSG in the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. He had to take painkillers for him to play because he had an ankle issue. Why? Because it was such a pivotal game in Arsenal's season that if they won that game, they had the possibility of qualifying for the UEFA Champions League final. Unfortunately for them, they were unable to do it. So as soon as they lost that game, he was sent to the sick bay. And I think he had a minor or whatever kind of level of surgery that he had on his ankle. And his season was as good as done. So for people to come out and insinuate that all these are fakes, I do not want to agree. If Gabriel Magalhaes tells you, I have some pain in my knee, I've got to respect that. We're talking about a player that has played so many games thus far this season. I know he's missed out of the 31 Premier League games, he's missed 6. Is it 6 or 5? I think about 6 through injury. Who am I not to believe when he says, I have pain in my knee and it's the international break, we're going to play friendlies, I could sit this one out. If Ricardo Carafiori had pain in his knee and still insisted on going away with Italy, I would understand. Why? Because World Cup qualification was on the line for them. And I explained that. Then you look at Bukayo Saka, you look at Declan Rice, players who are more or less guaranteed starting positions in that England national team, and they're going away to play friendlies. Really, you're carrying either fatigue, you're carrying a minor injury, a knock, whatever that is. Why put yourself at the risk of exacerbating that problem, especially because as players, sometimes they want to do everything there can be. Sometimes they just want to play football. Others want to die a little for their country. Others just want to do it all. Now, for a manager, for example, I'll use the example of Thomas Tuchel because he did this. If you have the intuition or the experience as a manager, both at club level and country level, if you have the opportunity to excuse these players, to have them rested, why not do it? So, and here we are. For all the criticism that was being leveled against them, now you have Bukayo Saka being rolled out for the first leg of the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League for Arsenal against Sporting CP. And that's very crucial for the Arsenal because that leaves them a bit short. It means that without Bukayo Saka, they're limited to having Noni Madueke, preferably as their starter to the right, and Max Dorman. Now, Noni Madueke himself, really, he played over the weekend against Southampton. We know that we had the scares that he had suffered that injury against England, during England's 1-1 draw against Uruguay in an international friendly. Now, what's to rule out that he can also get injured in the very game that you want him to play in? We've seen players get injured during training. So that means it leaves Arsenal a bit short, to be honest. Whereas those in themselves are potent replacements, they are replacements in their own rights, and Bukayo Saka is ahead of them in the pecking order for a reason. So I believe he will be a huge miss for the Arsenal going into that game. Then, because I'll give you one example, particularly what Bukayo Saka gives you defensively and in the counter press, Noni Madueke does not give you that. And you're going away on enemy territory. So you see where the disadvantage then comes in. So for all of you that had conspiracy theories about this Arsenal side and their injuries and all the player recalls from international duty, where's that? You have Pierre Hincapié, This one did not feature, and we know that he was one of those players that was constantly featuring in Arsenal's cup competitions. This time around, it's had to be switched to be Carafiori. And again, you do not want to risk him in the absence of Hincapié. Therefore, it had to be Miles Lewis Kelly who played the majority of that game, and then Carafiori was later brought on. So I think the news about Bukayo Saka being out injured is one that should be of great concern to the Arsenal fans. Now, Mikel Arteta continues to say that his hope is that he will be back over the weekend, like when they take on AFC Bournemouth, because next weekend in the early kickoff at 2:30 p.m. Arsenal will be taking on Bournemouth. It will be a home game at the Emirates Stadium. Now, I do not need to stress the significance of that game before we even get to it. Anyways, we'll not get into it. Let's stick to tomorrow's game because it's against Sporting Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon is one of those teams that have the best home forms in recent times, and they do score quite a good number of goals. Remember, in the last Champions League outing, they dispatched Bodo Glimt by 5 goals to nil, even though it took up to extra time. So, particularly speaking, Mikel Arteta was saying Bukayo Saka and Julian Timber. He was speaking about this too. First of all, he was asked about Gabriel Magalhaes, Declan Rice, and Leandro Trossard, and he said, yes, those are available. Then on Bukayo Saka and Timber, he said, no, they are having trouble. They are not ready yet. Let's see, hopefully, they are going to be ready for the weekend. If everything goes well, that's a massive boost, because in recent days we have lost so many important players, and that's something that we need to change immediately. Now, you see, he's even saying, hopefully, he's only hoping that everything else goes right between now and Friday, that they are available for Saturday. So, and when he talks about losing so many players lately, Yuan Timber suffered his injury in their 2-0 victory against Everton. Martin Odegaard really featured in the weekend. He had been out through injury for quite some time. Gabriel Magalhaes, you had Declan Rice carrying, Nigos. It's been a long season. And, as you consider, look at it this way. Consider a runner, a long distance runner, going through a marathon. Trust me, they can never run at the same pace in, let's say, if a marathon is 42 kilometers, they can never run the same pace they started with between the 20th kilometer and the 40th kilometer. It is up in the last 2 kilometers that they may try to switch it up and, give you that pace. But again, I struggle to believe that it will be the equivalent of their starting pace, or maybe it's higher because they're giving it a final push to get it over the finishing line. So look at Arsenal's season being between that being between the 15-kilometer point and the 40-kilometer point. That's the period in which they are in their season. So therefore, energies are bound to drop. People that are carrying twists of ankles, niggles, and knocks are going to start really, really feeling them, because they've possibly played a given number of games with those pains are being carried on. So I think it is of great significance that you sort of acknowledge that, So yeah, okay. I think we have a comment for somebody. King Cash Money. Are you Indian? No, please. I'm not Indian. I'm Ugandan. Thanks for asking. For those of you that are just joining the broadcast, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it is your first time here, and help support the Football Tribe UG community to continue to grow. Thank you. But also, if you think you can give me a vote of thanks, just check on the dollar sign there down near the comment section. So anyways, moving on. So like I said, for me, in my humble opinion, Bukayo Saka is really, really going to be a huge miss for this Arsenal side. And especially being that it is an away game. Not that if it was a home game, it would be less or it would be more easier, but maybe with the home game, you have at least the environment of the home fans to amplify or lift the spirits of the players really playing at home. Liverpool are Arsenal brother. Liverpool are Arsenal brother bottling every final. I did not get the comment, Mr. Morgan Arthur. I did not get the point really. Correct me or indulge me on that one. You say Liverpool are Arsenal. When you say Liverpool are Arsenal, what do you mean, brother? Bottling every final? Liverpool have not played any final thus far this season. In any case, okay, maybe the quarterfinal. They did bottle that one. 4-0 is so bad. Okay, we'll get to that in a bit. Let me wrap up with the Arsenal news regarding their Champions League exploits over in Portugal, which is tomorrow at 10 p.m. I don't know. I'm really, really trying to see a world. I saw on Google Liverpool versus Manchester City final. No. It was a quarterfinal. Yes, it was a quarterfinal, and it was actually the reverse. Manchester City versus Liverpool, because Man City were the home side. For purposes of correction. So Arsenal take on Sporting Lisbon, a side that is quite troublesome to them, because this is the kind of fixture that they have played before, or it's the kind of team that they've met before in the UEFA Europa League. And yes, they've also met before in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. And that was during the league phase, I think sometime last season. You say Madrid winning the UEFA Champions League final, let them first get to the final in the first place. And then we'll have the talk of them winning the UEFA Champions League title. But for those of you that care to remember, Arsenal did meet Sporting Lisbon in the UEFA Europa League stage groups This was back in the 2017-2018 season. Is that the season? Most probably. No. Or 2018-2019. I think 2018-2019. That's when Arsenal went all the way to the finals. No, actually, they played consecutive seasons in the UEFA Europa League, because even 2017-2018, remember, they were knocked out by Atletico de Madrid in the semi-finals of the UEFA Europa League. But when the two sides met back in 2018, it was a goalless draw at the Emirates Stadium, and then Arsenal won away by 0-0. So, but that was in the group stages. Then in 2022-2023, that's when Arsenal met Sporting Lisbon at the knockout stages, and it was a 2-2 draw in Portugal, and then a 1-1 draw in the reverse fixture. That is after extra time, and Sporting CP knocked out Arsenal on post-match penalties. When they met last year in the league phase of the UEFA Champions League, Arsenal put 5 past Sporting CP. So, and at the time, Victor Gyökeres was playing for Sporting CP. This time around, he's going to be facing his former bosses. Now, with the absence of Yuan Timber and Bukayo Saka, what does that imply to Arsenal's probable lineup? Here is how I think they could set up with those absences borne in mind or kept in mind. So you could see Noni Madueke, I think, starting at the right wing for Bukayo Saka. Then you could also have Ben White start at right back. Now, if Ben White is going to start at right back, I really pray that he does pull up his stockings, because over the weekend against Sporting CP, he had such a poor game. For those of you that had the chance of watching that game, you must have made the same observation, if not close to it, you know. And I've noticed recently, he does get quickly or easily irritated. He made some stupid foul because he was irritated by the Southampton player. And he did the same thing in the Carabao Cup final against Manchester City. I think he made the tackle or the foul against Ryan Chucky. So there's that. I don't know. I don't want to call him a bad loser, but in those last 2 games, he's been really suspect. You know, he's been really suspect. And also, he did not have a very good game against Manchester City. Let's be honest. So he's not. And I want to believe that ever since he returned from injury, he's now played enough minutes for him to be triggered back into motion. Maybe not at his very best, but to be beyond average, at least. To be beyond average. So expect David Ryan goal. Gabriel Magalhaes alongside William Saliba, Ricardo Carafiori at left back, then Ben White at right back. That midfield of Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. I have a feeling those are the ones that could start in that midfield. However, I'm also happy to report that Ebeleche Eze is back in training with the Arsenal team. I do not know if he's made the traveling contingent, but I think I need to check out on that one. But he's back in training. So Gabriel Martinelli, Noni Madueke, and Victor Gyökeres. That could be the starting 11. However, if Leandro Trossard were fully fit enough, I think I would start him ahead of Gabriel Martinelli. I don't know. I think I'm bound, if not already, to grow out of patience with Gabriel Martinelli. I feel at his age and with his experience, he should be giving this Arsenal side more than he is letting on at the moment, you know, because I've found some of his performances really quite wanting. And I do not think I'm the only one that has experienced that. I found his performances very wanting. You have to really scratch your head quite deeply, perhaps to a bloody injury, for you to try and remember the last time he gave you a good game, you know? So the last time he gave you a good game. So in as far as the Champions League is concerned, there's only been one meeting between Sporting CP and Arsenal, and that's the 5-1 victory for the Gunners in the previous outing, you know? So that's how small or very narrow a sample space it is for us to draw conclusions of previous meetings, particularly in the UEFA Champions League, to say this one has the edge. In terms of overall team quality, you expect that Arsenal have the edge. But when it comes to Gabriel Martinelli, he's 24 years of age. He should be hitting his prime. We're talking about a player that has played in this Arsenal side for the last coming on to 6 years? Actually, more than 6 years. Maybe 7 years, because I think his debut campaign with Arsenal was the Unai Emery season of 2018-2019. And then Arteta comes in and he finds him there. Now, we are talking about an Arteta guy who celebrated his 6th anniversary in charge of this team last year in December. So he's been at the scene. He's been really, really there. When you look at his numbers in the Premier League, they're as disappointing as you'd have them come. In 25 Premier League appearances, he scored only 1 goal and provided 3 assists. Now, of course, in the UEFA Champions League, his numbers, there's a bit of a sharp contrast when it comes to that, because in the Champions League, he's done much better. This season alone, he's already scored 6 goals in 9 appearances and provided 1 assist. That's a good return on investment, But overall, in terms of his application and energy, first of all, I feel that there is a significant drop-off in his own energy. We are talking about a Gabriel Martinelli that was known for his relentless runs back and forth across those lines. But these days you feel he's just not doing what's good enough. He's just not good enough, So if Leandro Trossard is available and fully fit to start, for me, I would go with Leandro Trossard to start ahead of Gabriel Martinelli in that game. So we'll have to wait and see how things go, or how Mikel Arteta sort of chooses his team, in terms of going into this particular fixture. Because for Leandro Trossard, he has a 10-goal contribution, only 5 goals and 5 assists. And even Leandro Trossard, by the way, is equally a culprit, because he's had a very, very poor second half of the season. He had started the season really, really well, but his form dropped out. In the UEFA Champions League, he scored only 1 goal, but at least provided 4 assists. That's a 5-goal contribution in 6 appearances that he's made that far. So for me, I would give him a bit of a chance to start there. Now, with Ebelechi Eze, we're going to have to wait and see. But I think he's made the traveling contingent, because if he did make training, I do not think he would be left behind, especially bearing in mind, that Bukayo Saka is out of this one, So it's going to be very, very critical. So of how, Arsenal behave tomorrow. I was trying to check on the Arsenal website to see what the traveling contingent is, but I was unsuccessful by the time of this broadcast. Yes, as unsuccessful by the time of this broadcast. I'll seek to find from other online sources in terms of the traveling squad. Usually they do a pre-match walk. I don't know if they'll do it in Portugal. I don't know if they will do it in Portugal, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see whether they'll have done something there in terms of the players that they've carried themselves with. Marcelo Skelly, I'm not too excited about him. So. Even when you went to sources like BBC Sport, all they mentioned was Gabriel Magalhaes returning back to training and Declan Rice, But in terms of the club's full contingent, I'm yet to find out whether who has traveled and who hasn't. So of course the UEFA Champions League gives them room to have more players on the bench as compared to the Premier League. So there's that. But the news of Bukayo Saka being out through injury, like I said, will be very, very disconcerting. Will be very concerning to those to Arsenal fans wherever they are. And like I've told you, in addition to that, Julian Timber is not available. Arguably the best right back in the Premier League this season. For those of you that can't remember, I included him in our best 11 for the Premier League this season. And in case you're interested on finding out how that 11 looks like, please do not hesitate to go to the Football Tribe UG channel under the video section and have a snapshot look at that one. I think it should be a short video, must be under 10 minutes. So do not make sure you spare a moment to go and look out for that. Now, moving on, because guys, this is not the full preview for that Arsenal game and Sporting CP. We'll do that in the morning. So this is basically about team news. On the other side, Bayern Munich travel to Spain, or have traveled to Spain to take on Real Madrid, and it's a big game. This is the kind of game that is worthy of a final. Ordinarily, if on any given day, in terms of football entertainment, I'll take Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid for a UEFA Champions League final. That's how big I rate this game. Nonetheless, they've been motivated, or their camp has been motivated by the return of Harry Kane. Harry Kane is, I don't know, how do I describe Harry Kane? I think Harry Kane does stand out as one of the best players there is this season, in terms of statistics. When you look at the German Bundesliga, he already has 31 goals in 26 appearances and 5 assists. That's a 36 goal contribution thus far in only 26 appearances. And that form, first of all, he scored already 5 goals more than he did last season, albeit he's so far provided 4 assists, less than in the entirety of last season. Last season, he made 31 appearances for the club. In the UEFA Champions League, he's been such a pivotal player because he has 10 goals. I think he's on level with Anthony Gordon of Newcastle at 10 goals, and ahead of them is Kylian Mbappe, who has so far scored 13. So they are settles to score or scales to balance. You have Kylian Mbappe, one of the highest goal scorers for Real Madrid, actually the highest goal scorer for Real Madrid, more than 30 goals across all competitions already this season. And then you have Harry Kane on the other side. So I think that's some really brilliant news. Whereas Nicolas Jackson has done okay for Bayern Munich, you would not mention him ahead of Harry Kane in that sort of hierarchy. That's how important Harry Kane is. And even though he's approaching the evenings of his career at the age of 32, he's still banging it. And the thing I like about Harry Kane's game these days is that he's sort of been adapted to not to being a fox in the box. You see how Cristiano Ronaldo adapted his game from being the pacey winger early on. As he went into his 30s, he sort of became a hyena. A hyena is the kind of wild animal that will keep a trail of a lion, so that when a lion has a catch, eats and has scraps left over, it will go and eat the scraps. And if the hyenas are moving in a pack, then they could even force a lion, if it is a single lion, off its kill. Something like that. So, in a sort of a reverse kind of roles, Harry Kane has become more involved in the game than he used to be for me at Tottenham Hotspur. Because oftentimes at Tottenham Hotspur, what it felt like for me, he sort of waited for that ball to be carried forward and then go on his runs and score the beautiful and brilliant goals. But with Bayern Munich, he more plays like a 10. It's like he drops in deep and he plays like a traditional 10, carry the ball forward as though, and that's why you have players like Michael Olise, Luis Diaz, Leonard Carl scoring loads of goals. Why? Because whereas it is their role to create chances for Harry Kane, he does reciprocate sort of the gesture in a way. Not as high as those that are tasked with the role of creating for him, but his sort of interplay, involvement in the game has really risen high, and it's something that you really love to see. So it's a very good thing to have him back in this Bayern Munich squad. And I do not think Vincent Company will sort of would sort of be naive, for lack of a better word, not to start him if he's indeed fully fit. So, yeah, unless he's not fully fit, that's when you're thinking maybe he doesn't start. Excuse me. So, the good thing also, Manuel Neuer is back. So, I expect Manuel Neuer, Jonathan Tah, maybe alongside Kim In-jae, I don't know, or Dad Upemikano, Konrad Lema, Tommy Bishop, or Josip Astancic. This one squad, I think, against Atlanta in the first leg in that 6-1 victory. Then Alexander Pavlovich, Joshua Kimmich, then Serge Gnabry, Luis Diaz, Michael Olise, and Harry Kane. Now, that's quite the attacking force. Like I said, also the beauty on the other side is that Kylian Mbappe is fit. He started over the weekend but missed lots of chances. Vinicius Junior did not start that game but did come on. The question is, which players are they going to play in the width? Because Real Madrid, with their attacking, with sort of their counter-attacking sort of football, I'm waiting to really, really see how their width is going to look like. The question is, who do you accommodate on the width? Brahim Diaz, Adagula. I think he will pack that midfield. Expect to see Chouameni, Judy Bellingham, I think, Fede Valverde. So that means you have Chouameni alongside Valverde with Bellingham at the tip of that. And then in addition to that, it could be Adagula, because Bellingham can tuck back inside a bit in that sort of midfield and form their triangle of their own. And then you have Adagula drifting wide as also centrally to sort of play behind the Mbappe kind of role, that kind of thing. So that would be my expectation in that regard. So we just have to wait and see. But Real Madrid, their injury concerns have largely been in defense. Thibaut Courtois not being available, Ferland Mendy got injured, you've had recently Eder Militao just returned, Antonio Rudiger has been available, Alvaro Carreras did return and was available over the weekend, so he played in that game. Then do you go with Alexander Trent-Arnold, or do you choose to pull Fede Valverde out of midfield and put him at right back, given the sort of defensive work and running off of the ball that Real Madrid are going to need to do in terms of tomorrow's game? So we're going to need, we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of running amongst those players, especially the Real Madrid midfielders and defenders, especially when you're up against Luis Diaz, Serge Gnabry, and Michael Olise. We're talking about players that can take on players in terms of dribbling, So it's very, very, we have to wait and see. Mariam Elaseli is back. You do remember me? Yes, I do remember you. Go to sleep, bro. You seem sleepy. Not really. I'm not sleepy. I'm just a bit, what should I call it? A bit hungry. Yeah, I need to eat something. So, but yeah, Mariam does join us from Egypt. She's Egyptian. She speaks French and Arabic and a bit of English, So that's what I remember about Mariam. I don't remember what city she told me she's from, if she ever did, but I would suspect it's either Cairo or Alexandria. I don't know otherwise. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you back, Mariam, with us. I hope you're doing okay. So anyways, let me go and respond to some of these comments. Earlier on from Mr. Morgan, he talked about Real Madrid winning the Champions League. First of all, Real Madrid, by measure of their own pedigree, given that they are the most successful team in European football, they do stand a chance and they do come in as favorites. Yes, you have good memory, so I do not forget the people that support me on this channel, especially people that come in the comment section and we have a good engagement. So So Real Madrid, by the virtue of the fact that they're the most successful team, they have won the competition 9 more times than Bayern Munich have done. You're always going to give them a chance, especially when they find themselves in the knockout stages of the competition. They may not look the most fancy in terms of eye catching, in terms of watching them, but be rest assured they know when to turn up the heat. I think it was Thierry Henry who said, of course, he played for Barcelona, so trust me, he has no love for Real Madrid. He said he doesn't know what happens to Real Madrid players when they wear that white shirt on a UEFA Champions League night. They could have a shambolic week or weekend, and in terms of the Spanish La Liga, and come in the UEFA Champions League and look the best version of themselves. So they have that ability in them. I do not know what sort of motivations are told to those players, or because, by the way, Real Madrid has always been built to sort of be dominant in Europe. Yes, they want to win La Liga, but there's been seasons where their main focus or amplification has been on winning the UEFA Champions League. You remember back in 2014 when they are looking for the La Decima? That's their 10th Champions League title. Why? Because they had last won the competition, I think, back in 2002. That's when they had last, won it. What do you expect regarding that could win? What do you expect regarding the country that could win the World Cup? Oh, okay. Let me wrap up with Real Madrid. So, Real Madrid are going to be always one of the favorites. I did mention that. I'd say Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Barcelona, Liverpool, for me, would be my top 5 favorites to win the UEFA Champions League this season. However, with the draw pitted between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, that automatically takes one piece off of the board. We're just going to have to wait and see which teams make it to the semi-finals. Because in Real Madrid slash Bayern Munich's path is Liverpool slash PSG. So there's that. And I think that's why it's very entertaining. Then I add Barcelona because of their pedigree. They've won it 5 times. Yes, they've not won it in the last 1 decade, but but they're really, really capable. They have a very good manager in Hans Flick. One of those elite managers that is least praised or least talked about in terms of how good he is, So I cannot write off Barcelona. So those would be my favorites. Now, to answer Mariam's question about the World Cup. First of all, the World Cup is around the corner. I think we could be less than 2 months to the World Cup in terms of the actual kickoff. Among my favorites, Portugal is one of those. In terms of, these are in no particular order, by the way. I'll say Portugal, I'll say Spain, I'll say France, I'll say England. Those 4 are among my top 4. Those are my favorites in terms when I look at them and try to assess them. German, I'm not too convinced. And German can be a very good tournament team, but they've not looked convincing in a bit. Argentina, they are the defending champions. I would put them in 5th place. Why? Predominantly have this mental predisposition that the World Cup is going to return to Europe. Remember, this has been the chronology of winners. 1994, it went to Brazil. 98, it went to France. 2002, it went to Brazil. 2006, it went to Italy. 2010, it went to Spain. 2014, it went to Germany. 2018, it went to France. 2022, it went to Argentina. So you can see, in the last 8 editions of the World Cup, you've had only 3 go to South America. You've had only 3. 2 with Brazil in 94 and 2002, and then Argentina in 2022. All the others have gone to Europe, with France winning it twice, 98 and 2018. with Spain in 2010, with German in 2014. So you can see how things have gone in that sort of a period of time, you know. So France has it twice, Spain has it once, German has it once. Oh, did I skip any? I don't think I did. I don't think I did. So basically, that's the mathematics. So I have this anticipation that it is going to return to Europe, and that's why the top 4 teams that I expect to win it are from Europe. You know, in no particular order. Do you love Liverpool? I have no hate for Liverpool. Do you support Manchester United? No, I do not support Manchester United as a club, but I love football in general. I'll keep saying this, and I'll die on this sort of on this hill. Me supporting a particular club is a consequence of my love for football. So I love football in general, and then that's when I break it down. I do support Real Madrid, I do support Arsenal, the Brazil national team, and the Uganda Cranes. Oftentimes, I'd love the underdog to win against the big team if it is not any of the teams that I support that is playing. So yeah, I do not have anything against Liverpool. Of course, these are the strongest. What about Brazil? Now, Brazil has pedigree because they are the most successful country in the history of the World Cup. They've won it 5 times. Next to them is Italy and Germany. They've both won it 4 times. Next to them is Argentina, have won it 3 times. They also won it in 1986. You remember that goal by Diego Armando Maradona, dubbed the hand of God. Then, and next to them is France, who have won it twice. And I think all the others have won it once. I stand to be corrected if I'm missing something, or if I've missed any country in between there. So Brazil have not looked good in a long while, by the way. Really, they were able to make it to the semifinals in 2014 when they hosted the competition. You remember how that semifinal ended? They got obliterated by Germany, conceding 7-1. If you care to remember, Oscar Mboaba Jr., by the way, who retired from football just days ago at the age of 34, scored the only consolation for Brazil in that game. Players like Andrea Schuller scored a brace in that one. I think even Thomas Muller. And then Miroslav Klose was among the goal scorers, in that game. So Brazil, yes, they have the history of being a very, very good team. And they have a very good coach in Carlo Ancelotti this time around. However, I do support Brazil, but I do not have high hopes in them winning the World Cup. If they do it, they will have stunned me. They will have surprised me pretty much as any other football fan out there, because I wouldn't even put them in the top 5 in terms of favorite teams to win it. The World Cup is not a competition easy to defend, and I do not know, and I think I need to check my sort of history in terms of World Cup winners to see if there's any team that has ever defended it or won it back-to-back, especially in terms of modern times or recent history. I do not think there's any. Now, Uruguay won the inaugural World Cup in 1930. And then Italy went on to, Italy did it. So Italy won it in 1934 and in 1938. Then Brazil also won it in 1958 and 1962. So, but again, you can see that those are the only outliers. So that's how difficult it is to defend that competition, Sham, hi Sham, Sup, Uncle, good. I'm good. Kindly like the broadcast. Do me that absolute honor and like the broadcast. But okay, to digress back briefly about the feedback from Mariam. So I love Brazil. I really, really love for Brazil to win it. However, I've watched Brazil even in the recent friendlies, and they were far from convincing. That team lacks a creative number 10 or midfielder or attacking midfielder. According to multiple reports from Brazil, it does not look likely that Neymar will be summoned to the national team for the World Cup. So I look at where this creative spark is going to come from, and I'm sort of a little bit blip. Why? Because Vinicius Jr., as good as he is a player, when it comes to the Brazil national team, he never turns up the way he stand up for Real Madrid in recent years. Particularly go back to the 2023-2024 campaign when he was vying for the Ballon d'Or, and because they did not win it, Real Madrid were all up in arms for that. Meanwhile, who won the Ballon d'Or in 2024? Because it was Ousmane Dembele in 2025. So anyway, the point I'm trying to drive at is that you look at players like Rafinha. Rafinha is only sort of hit his highest mark last season. And you look at this season, and this season itself is a drop-off for the brilliant player that he was last season. And therefore, what that implies is that I'm not convinced that he is going to suddenly turn up at the World Cup. His season has been hampered by injuries. So there's that. Then you look at that midfield, it's Casemiro. I don't know if it's going to be played alongside Bruno Guimaraes or Andre Santos or Jolinton, or I don't know who. I look at that back line, Gabriel Magalhaes and Marquinhos are good, Bremer is good, but this business of Danilo and Alexandro, I need us to move on from that. Gabriel Martinelli, Ricardson, Matheus Cunha, these are all unconvincing guys. In fact, one of the few Brazilians that has had a really, really brilliant season, could you answer my previous comments? Yes, I'm going to answer them, please. I was just finishing up on Brazil. When you look at the one of the Brazilians that has had a really, really bright season, you're going to look at Igor Thiago at Brentford. Now you can imagine. I think 2019 goes to his Premier League name, you know. So that's where I look at Brazil at. Okay. Let me see. I hope I've not skipped a comment. Okay. You say, brother, please, haha, you're telling me about history of football and I'm not that interested. You ask the question, so I had to answer the question. Then you say, I'm going to ask you a funny question, haha. What do you think about Egypt's chances in the World Cup? I'm not laughing at the question. I'm laughing because you said it's funny. And maybe it is funny in a way. It's humorous, especially for a country. First of all, before I even put it on Egypt as a country, as a continent, Africa, we've never had a World Cup winner. It took until the 2022 World Cup to have a country from Africa for the first time to make it to the semifinals, and that was Morocco, you know. So trust me, my hopes about Egypt or any other African country are not high up there. Again, until it does happen, I don't think I would be hopeful. I don't think I even have the faith that it's going to happen. However, I'll say that I can only pray that it happens. Now, if Egypt do win the World Cup, we will celebrate it as Africans. But will we have enough of it as, you know how England keep reminding us of how they won the World Cup? But do you know when they won it? In 1996. In 1996. Sorry, in 1966, not 96. 1966. That's when they won the World Cup. How many years has it been since then? That's let me see, 40. You have to go back 44 years plus, this is 26. What? 60 odd years? So I can imagine if Egypt won it. Okay. Then you say Italy did not qualify. They were defeated by Bosnia. Yes, that's true. Italy did not qualify. And they've not qualified for a third time in a row. So, yeah. I mean, it still makes news because they are one of the most successful teams in the history of the World Cup. Could you please answer my comment? I think I've answered the comment about Egypt. I think that's what you wanted to refer to me. You say, I do not mean that Egypt will win the World Cup. man. Haha. I meant that they will least qualify to the quarterfinals. I do not see them in the quarterfinals. By the way, and the reason I do not see them in the quarterfinals, it's not that Egypt are not good enough to sort of go that far. However, there's not even precedent for me to lean on to say, yeah. And it's not like they've had that big a tremendous year in terms of African football or world football for me to be thinking they are a team to watch. In any case, as conservative as Senegal do play their game, I would actually fancy them to go even further than Egypt would go. It's just, first of all, they are the reigning champions of the Africa Cup of Nations. They've won it twice in the last 3 editions, I think. They won it in 2021 and then 2025, even though CAF is trying to play games with that. So, in a nutshell, I'm not too hopeful about Egypt. Nonetheless, I'll say I wish the Egyptians the best of luck. Come on, Egypt, please. I want to be happy. I understand. You want to be happy for them. You see, we all wish well for our countries and respective teams, or in whichever sport where we pay allegiance to. We all mean well, wish well, have the hope. And trust me, if Egypt made it to as far as the quarterfinals, they'll celebrate that. You could even see a celebration parade in Cairo for Egypt just doing that. Why? Because we tend to struggle as African countries. You go back to the 2010 World Cup. I don't know if you have memories of watching any of it, but Ghana made it to the quarterfinals and eventually were knocked out by Uruguay. The entirety of Africa were disappointed. I remember going into the 2010 World Cup and Nigeria was one of those very, very strong countries at the time. Now, you remember Egypt had won the Africa Cup of Nations back-to-back 3 consecutive editions, 2006, 2008, and 2010, but still could not qualify for the World Cup. So that's the history of sort of Egypt with the World Cup. It's something that has always eluded them, you know. Hi Guna, you say, did you get a fresh shave, as in haircut? Yes. You see, when you say shave, it sort of passes for the shave of the private parts. So when you say haircut, yeah, I got one. It's been a bit hot these days around Kampala, so that's why the hair layer was even further reduced, because it gets too hot, your head becomes sweaty, suddenly before you know it, it's a bit itchy. So I want to feel more water hit my scalp. So thank you so much, Guna. Guna C. I hope you've liked the broadcast, but also if it is your first time here, please consider subscribing to the channel. But I don't think Guna, this is your first time here. I think I've seen you here before. So Mariam, let me hope I've responded to all your questions in regards to Egypt, in regards to Liverpool, in regards to Brazil, in as far as the World Cup is concerned. You say Egypt has won the Africa Cup of Nations 7 times. That's true. No. I wasn't saying they won it 3 times. I was saying, you remember the time when they won it 3 consecutive times in 2006, 2008, and 2010. If you remember that period, they still did not qualify for the World Cup. That's the point upon which I was making reference. But I know that they are the most successful country in the history of the Africa Cup of Nations, with as many as 7 championships. And next to them, I think, is Nigeria and Cameroon, who have won it 5 times. So, you know, I understand now. Sorry, I misunderstood. It is all right. So, but so let's okay, if let's say Egypt were to exit early from the World Cup, which other country would you support? Which other country would you support at the World Cup? You know, let's assume Egypt exited early. What other country would you support at the World Cup? Continue reading the comments. Sorry, I read the entirety of the comments. Oh, they seem more interested in the Africa Cup of Nations than the World Cup, even though the opposite is true. I understand that bit. Let me give you an example, and allow me use European football for that example. You remember when I was talking about Real Madrid, I told you that they had last won the UEFA Champions League in 2002. Now, between 2002 and 2013, they never won the UEFA Champions League. So it came to a point where they were desperate to win that 10th UEFA Champions League title. And they would almost do anything to sort of win it. Because after winning it in 2002, for those of you that care to remember, AC Milan won it in 2003. I think they beat Juventus in the finals. Then 2004, it was FC Porto. I think they beat Monaco in the final. Then 2005, it was Liverpool. They stunned AC Milan, in the final and that kind of thing. So Real Madrid became obsessed with winning the La Decima, the 10th UEFA Champions League title. And it came in 2014. The other example I can give you is PSG. Ever since PSG was acquired by the Qataris, they were and they started dominating French League One. They became desperate to winning the UEFA Champions League. But look how long it's taken them. They've had to go through sort of loads and loads of good coaches. Carlo Ancelotti, Unai Emery, Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino. Those are all elite managers they've had that could not guide them to a UEFA Champions League title until Luis Enrique. So similarly for Egypt, I think they would love to win the World Cup. It's just been, I don't even want to use the word elusive to them, So that's how I would explain it. But yeah, in the 2002 World Cup, in the 2002 UEFA Champions League final, Real Madrid beat up against Bayer Leverkusen by 2-1 in the final. In that final, so that's when Real Madrid last won it. So, really, let me see your other comments. Okay, you talk about Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo, in addition to Arab and African countries. Okay, I understand that. Thank you. They are interested in what's more reliable and easiest. I don't think winning the Africa Cup of Nations is the easiest, Otherwise, we would have a country at least win it 10 consecutive times, but it's not that easy. That seems smart. Being good at one thing is better than nothing at all. Oh, fair enough. I know, for example, our own Uganda Cranes played in the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations in 1978, and they lost to Ghana by 2-0. Then you say Morocco, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Tunisia, Qatar, Senegal, and many other countries. Oh, that means you have many countries that you wish well for, but when push comes to shove, you only have Egypt and Portugal. So, anyways, thank you so much, Mariam. It's been 1 hour and 3 minutes. It's 43 minutes past the hour of midnight here in Kampala, Uganda. So, guys, allow me to call it a wrap. We'll be back tomorrow morning to discuss more from the world of football, to discuss more of the preview of the UEFA Champions League for those two games that are coming up between Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, as well as Sporting CP versus Arsenal. And then, yeah, of course, action will also continue to Wednesday. So it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Do not worry, most of the countries I support will be eliminated in the early stages of the group stages. Wow. How many heartaches can you carry? How many heartbreaks can you carry when all those teams are eliminated from the World Cup quite early on? Because you must have the mental fortitude for it in case you are that passionate about them beyond just meaning them well. But I completely understand. It also comes with the love for football in general. So allow me, Mariam, wish you a blessed night, and the rest of you that have been part of tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much, Mariam. Thank you so much, Guna. Thank you so much, Mamu. Thank you so much, somebody's name that I can't read. It's I don't know. Is that Ukrainian? Then Rehan Thank you so much for having been part of tonight's broadcast. I encourage building on loyalty, not skill, so we will lose. Okay, it's been a pleasure. Have a blessed night, and let's do this again tomorrow morning. Bye bye for now.